Hello, everyone. Welcome to Liberty in EDC. I'm your host, Daniel Sellers Norman, and we're here with Noel Russell, who's running for EID Board Director Division 1. Thanks for coming on, Noel.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, to start out, I want to ask you a fun question, and that is, what's like your favorite little known gem here in the county?
You know, I got to say, it's almost right next door to you here. Is that Bagel Works bagel shop?
Oh yeah, Bagel Works.
I've
Yeah.
been going there for years, and it's great to they support the college kids and hire some of the local kids, and
Yeah.
it's a good solid mom and pop outfit. Love their food.
Yeah. And they have a burrito there that's really good too. That I
I'll
mean,
have to try it.
even though I love their bagels too, but yeah.
Very
a nice,
good.
a nice gravy burrito.
Nice.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, what's your background? What made you want to run for office?
So I'm a county native. Lived here for about 52 years, and almost 30 of those years I spent employed with Dorado Irrigation District.
Oh wow.
Started out working in the trenches and worked my way up into management, and about 30 years later I went ahead and retired. A little bit early, had to care for an ailing family member. Now that chapter's closed, I'm running for office, and the first 20 years that I spent as an employee there, I think really prepared me well for moving into management.
Yeah.
The 10 years that I spent in management, I don't think there's anything that could have better prepared me for the next step, which is hopefully serving as on the board of directors in Division 1.
Yeah. So tell me again, how long were you working at EID for?
Almost 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About half of it in wastewater collections and the second half in drinking water. So I acquired advanced level certification in drinking water operations and led a great group of people for a good long time.
Yeah. Wow. So that must give you lots of experience with EID and.
A lot of experience, a lot of background. You know, one of EID's biggest challenges is as our whole country faces crumbling infrastructure, and most people think roads and bridges when we think about infrastructure. When they turn the faucet on, they expect water to come out of it, and they also expect it to go down the drain, and they expect it to be safe to drink. No matter the time of day, holidays, weekends, doesn't matter. And I have, over that 30 years, personally witnessed the degradation of EID's infrastructure, and most of it is underground. You can't see it until it comes out of the ground, and of course that's always a bad scene. So EID has a lot of work to do in terms of reinvesting in that. They've done a lot of good work, and that good work needs to continue.
Definitely. Before we get into too many other specifics for EID, what does the EID board members do exactly? Like, what's their role, and how do you plan to fulfill that?
You know, they serve as kind of the guide, just to kind of steer the organization in a solid direction that serves the community, and they do that with the help of management, and they kind of work together. I think the board serves as a steward for representing its constituents in each division, to keep rates under control while continuing sustainable investment back into the infrastructure.
Awesome. And then how do you plan to fulfill that role?
Because of my experience,
Yeah.
And what I've witnessed and what I've been able to participate in, I think one of the things that we need to really take a look at is extending our capital improvement program. So currently the district has a 5-year outlook for their capital improvement program.
Okay. And what's capital improvement?
So that's basically upgrading infrastructure. If you have an old water treatment plant, for example, like we do in El Dorado Hills, and there's another one in Pollock Pines, that are in need of reinvestment, they need to be rebuilt. If you have a 1961 automobile, which I don't think not very many people do, and if they do, they've completely restored it and probably replaced just about all the parts. And that's one of the things that needs to happen at the El Dorado Hills water treatment plant, is we need to replace all the parts. It was built in 1961.
Wow.
And as partially as a result, there are 2 water plants that need to be upgraded, one in Pollock Pines, one in El Dorado Hills. And that's to the tune of $93 million. Wow. The district will be seeking municipal bonds to fund that. In order to fund the payback of those municipal bonds, we're experiencing 5 consecutive years of double-digit rate increases. Okay. It should have come as no surprise to the board that this was coming. Yeah. And I think a longer term plan and more long-range outlook at EID's assets will give it the opportunity to better prepare and shield its ratepayers from double-digit rate increases over consecutive years.
Yeah. Wow. So, and you think that's just from being short-sighted? Like they're only looking at those 5 years?
I don't know that it's necessarily short-sighted. It might be that I think there might be some communication gaps. I know that the district recently brought on an asset management technician or an analyst, I think they're calling it. So they're going to be taking inventory of everything, and I think they're going to be taking a better look at what their assets look like and what the life cycles look like. Some of the transmission mains that bring water down off of the hill are at 70% of their life cycle. We're getting close, and we need to start thinking about that today.
Yeah, definitely. And then, so speaking of District 1, what areas are covered by that?
So it's all of Pollock Pines, part of Camino, all of Sly Park Road and Pleasant Valley, south of Weber Creek to Highway 49. So Division 1 covers quite a few residential customers, but it also covers about half of our agricultural community, which is an extraordinarily important part of our community economically and otherwise.
Yeah, it's part of what makes El Dorado County, I think.
It's a big piece of it, and that's a big part of what the district was founded upon, was irrigation.
Yeah. Now, for that area, are there any specific, issues that, affects them that you're passionate about or worried about, or that you're running on?
Specific to that area?
Yeah.
Really, no. There aren't any issues that are specific to that area that don't affect others as well. And working there as long as I did, I've got a pretty good bead on sort of where the hot spots are and where they're not. And oddly enough, the older part of the infrastructure, which is part of it is in Pollock Pines and Camino, is holding up better than some of the newer stuff. And I won't get into all the technicalities of all that, but El Dorado Hills has its own set of headaches. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of like buying appliances nowadays. You have stuff from the 70s that like still going, but you
and your 2-year-old refrigerator just quit running.
Yeah. Wow. And then, so what are some other key issues that you're passionate about?
So in addition to the district's failing infrastructure, which is first and foremost the biggest priority, and that needs to be staff's priority moving forward to maintain a safe, reliable drinking water system. Being on the inside for as many years as I was, in the last half of the decade that I was in management, we started to see a lot of employee turnover. And part of that was due to COVID, part of it was due to other things. And it's a huge expense for the district that the ratepayers ultimately bear. And so I think
the turnover?
The turnover is a huge expense. So you're talking training, certification, and just time to get people up to speed on what they're doing. Some folks think that the guys that are out there fixing the water system are just kind of, some ditch digging dropouts that, we can just find them anywhere on the street. And it's simply not true. There's drinking water certification that's required, commercial driver's licenses, and most of the folks that are coming into the workforce don't necessarily have all those certifications. So in order to get those guys trained and up to speed, sometimes the cost can be up to about $10,000 per person. So if you turn out 10 people a year, that's a down payment on a home.
Yeah.
And I think the district needs to take a look at maybe why that's happening. And not necessarily just strictly compensation, but taking a look at the newer generation that's coming into the workforce has a different set of priorities than, say, someone like I did when I came into the workforce. Sometimes they're not interested in a ton of overtime. Maybe they're interested in a more flexible schedule. Maybe they're interested in having a benefit that would pay for their music app, or I mean, there's just 100 different things that some people see as a priority that someone like me might not.
Yeah. I think the younger generation, like work-life balance, is kind of a big thing. Like they want to spend less time away or less time at work. And,
sure. And when I came into the workforce, I was the opposite. I told the boss, if there's overtime, sign me up.
Yeah.
Because I was a young man, had a young daughter, raising a family, and I was all about it.
Yeah.
But it's things have changed and evolved, and I think the district needs to evolve with that. And if they can do that, if the Human Resources Department can take a look at that and kind of make those necessary adjustments, I think they can succeed in retaining employees. And if you have an employee who has a lot of experience and a lot of time with the organization, they're going to be more efficient. They've got skin in the game. They're going to do a better job.
Awesome. Any other issues that you wanted to bring up?
No, I think those are the two key issues that the district faces, along with the extended capital improvement outlook. I think we need to go out to 10, 15, maybe even 20 years once that asset analysis is completed.
Yeah.
So that the district can adequately prepare today for those expenses that are going to be coming, so we don't end up with the rate shock that we're having right now with 12% double-digit rate increases for 5 consecutive years. That stings.
Yeah.
I mean, you take a look at PG&E, and it's even worse. There are some folks that say, well, you shouldn't raise rates at all. And you have to ask, well, where's that going to come from?
Yeah.
Because if your PG&E rates went up and so did mine, the district has PG&E bills too.
Yeah.
And it's millions of dollars per year. Water's expensive to move and pump. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you're always going to have to be paying for new infrastructure and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Continued reinvestment. We can't just replace it. With 220 square miles of service area and 130,000 people supporting that infrastructure, it's a very sparse population density to support the infrastructure. We've got miles and miles and miles of pipeline with no connections to it, which means there's no revenue being fed to that pipeline.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and inflation too for all those costs.
Absolutely.
Well.
Absolutely. The cost of construction has gone through the ceiling. It's crazy.
And then, so being on a board, you're always not going to be able to get along with everybody. How do you feel like you'd be able to, get along with people or, figure things out if you don't agree with your other board members on stuff?
I think it's important that we don't agree on everything. Because if we did agree on everything, we wouldn't need a board of directors. I think one of the most important things is finding common ground. Finding those things that we can all agree upon. And I think everybody can certainly agree upon infrastructure needs reinvestment.
Yeah.
How we get there, that may be a different story. But I think finding common ground and then where we need to compromise so that the ratepayers win. Because that's what this is about. This isn't about me or other board members. This is about the customers the district serves. And that's what I'm here for, is to give them the best representation I possibly can. And I think with 30 years experience within that specific utility, that gives me a special advantage to be able to ask maybe some of the probing questions that someone that comes in from another industry might not know to ask. And maybe to reveal some things that might not otherwise be revealed.
Yeah. And then I feel like this is always a hot button question that people want to ask about EID, and that's, ag rates versus, residential rates. And like, what's your opinion on that?
So back to what I had alluded to earlier, the district was founded on agriculture. So a little bit of history. All the farmers at one point were fed by open canals. Just an open ditch that feeds gravity water, and then they had weirs plumbed off of the ditch, and they would take so many miners' inches of water, whatever they paid for. So back in the 90s,
what's a miner's inch?
A miner's, oh my gosh. I forget the specific gallons, but basically it's an old school way of measuring a volume of water. So a cost analysis was done back in the 90s. And it was determined that the cost of maintaining those open canals was extraordinarily high. And that ultimately, in the long run, it would be more cost effective to deliver them potable water through a pipeline. So if you have a pipeline underground feeding them water, there's no surface to maintain, there's not going to be any overgrowth, there's no animals, there's no evapotranspiration, there's no seepage loss. It's just a far more efficient way to deliver water.
Yeah.
So it is more expensive to treat that water, but overall, the cost analysis did reveal that it is more cost effective to deliver potable water to the farmers. Now, I think there are some folks that see how the ag rate is calculated, and they see that it's substantially less per cubic foot in terms of commodity cost
Yeah.
to purchase under the ag rate. But we have to remember that they don't need potable water. They just need water out of the river or the lake or wherever they can get it. But the district took steps to deliver that in the most cost-effective way possible. So that's kind of what drives what the ag rate is today. I think if we were to bring the ag rate up to a standard residential cost,
Yeah.
Apple Hill would go away.
Yeah.
And
I
I don't think
agree.
any of us want that.
No.
So I think it's important that folks remember the history, what drove that to begin with, and it was it was better for everyone in the long run.
Okay. Yeah.
Hot button
that's good to
question
know,
for
too.
sure.
Yeah. And then, so what do you believe sets you apart from the other candidates? Like, why should people vote for you?
So I'm not a politician. I'm learning this as I go. I'm a recent retiree, and what I'm really leaning on is my experience with the organization and in water and wastewater. I know all the nuts and bolts and how all that stuff works, and I had a third of my career spent in management. That gave me the opportunity to see kind of what happens behind the scenes and how board presentations are created and how we justify purchases and how all that kind of stuff works. So my strength is my experience, and I'm a lifer in this community, and I have no intention on going anywhere. A lot of folks are
And maybe
leaving
a lifer at EID too.
Maybe that's the plan. A lot of folks are leaving California. I'm not. I'm gonna stay and fight.
Yeah, and I love El Dorado County up here too.
It's one of the most beautiful places in the state, let alone the country.
Yeah.
I drove to Yellowstone a couple of years ago. It was a waste of time. I've got all this right here in my backyard. I just burned a lot of fuel to get out there and back.
Yeah. And then if people want to learn more about your campaign, where can they go?
They can just punch in www.noel4eid.com.
Okay.
That'll take you to my Facebook page and Nextdoor.
Awesome. Anything you want to leave the voters with before we sign out here?
Vote for experience. Please vote for Noel Russell.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, Noel. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. This has been Liberty in EDC. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and look for more political interviews coming soon. And you can find us on Comcast Channel 7, YouTube, and social media.